But so tell me about dark fantasy. Like what are the key kind of elements to running a good dark fantasy game, do you think?
Oh, so a good dark fantasy game, I think everybody is familiar with fairy tales. So fairy tales that we grew up with that are versions of Disney films that have dark elements in them. A lot of Disney films have very dark elements in them, but are sort of ultimately about winning the day, overcoming and living happily ever after, right? And I think keeping in mind that that is a very modern Disneyfied version of a fairy tale is really important because a lot of those things originated from European folk tales and European fairy tales that are super scary, that have got these elements that are not for kids. And really leaning into that and looking at the origins of that genre, of the fairy tale genre, is a really good entryway into the dark fantasy of things. And I think we're starting to see that focus on those early concepts of fairy tales flipped on their head in stuff, some of the urban horror, some of the urban folk tales that you see on the internet, right? Like the creepypasta memes. A lot of those stories have got a lot of things that are reminiscent of some of the dark fantasy, right? Like Slenderman is from a child's rhyme. There's a number of things, like a lot of old British children's rhymes, it turns out, originate from these really awful things like the Black Plague. Like
Yeah, ring around the rosy for one.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So really going beyond the surface of what would be a normal fairy tale and seeing what the origin is, what some of these, again, inhuman figures are doing and looking to accomplish in the ways that they scare you. The stories that you would tell yourself as a child at night, that's really the key, the core of the dark fantasy. We're looking at the Junji Ito style of scary stories to tell each other in the dark. Scary stories to tell yourself in the dark is a film that came out a couple of years ago, I believe. And those are really sort of, again, that the sort of like basic foundation of some of those fairy tales, going back to the origins. I don't know if you're familiar with Junji Ito, who's a Japanese comic artist. He's been doing work for a long time, but he's got that art style that is just so visceral, and it's black and it's white, and it's all about like sort of scribbles. And the more abstract things get, the more awful and terrifying and wonderful everything is.
like the woman in the red room.
Yeah, like the woman in the red room. Yes. So now that I think about it, I hadn't thought about that film in a long time, but Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark has got some really interesting chunks of types of stories that are like, you get a boil on your face, it turns out, and it grows and it grows and it grows, and there's like a big thick sort of hair coming out of it, and it's actually like a giant spider that's growing into your skin.
It's the most Halloween adjacent in many ways.
Yeah.
It's that Sleepy Hollow, kind of Doulahan type of, the Rider's Bridge.
Yep. And so that's a continuous narrative, but Scary Stories it originally goes back to these little books that were inexplicably for children that I read as a child. And it's going back to some of those like really iconic things that like I remember stuck in my mind really heavily as a kid, things that I was terrified of. One of them was the big boil that grows and turns.
Oh, that's always upsetting. I remember. I don't remember the film off the top, but there was something in the 80s that also had something like that, very similar, where the bees started coming out of this person. I was just like,
bees.
Nope.
Not the bees.
If you want to watch more videos on Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, we've got a whole lot more coming up. If you want to support the channel, you can check out the Amazon affiliate link in the description and purchase the book, or just like, subscribe, share with your friends, and leave some comments down below. I love talking about Ravenloft, so I'm going to keep doing it. I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for watching.